Are you ready for some transformations? I knew you were. We're going to do some transformations. Let's do a little review of the 3 transformations that we've learned: translations, reflections, and rotations, and give you some reminders for how to do them on graphs. So make sure you have your graph paper. Make sure you're taking some notes from this first slide and also doing the 4 examples that we're going to do in this video. All right, so first reminder for translations. Translations are slides. So on a graph, make sure you move all points the same. So if the translation is 2 to the right and 4 down, you have to move all the points 2 to the right and 4 down. Reflections. So when you do reflections on a graph, it's important to note that the pre-image and image should be the same distance on both sides of the line of reflection, and obviously it should look the same shape and size as well. But just make sure it's the same distance away from that line of reflection. And then finally, rotations. Rotations are a little bit harder to do visually, working on clockwise versus counterclockwise, but on a graph, typically we're going to do counterclockwise unless told otherwise. And I would like you to write down um, this chart here. So write this down. Um, whoa. Whoops. All right, so write this down. Because we're going to use these. We've talked about how when you do 180 degrees, it should be completely opposite um, side of it, flipped around, and it makes um, you can see the opposite sign. So what this is showing is if you take a point, an X and a Y, so an X and a Y, and if you want to do a 90-degree rotation, let's just say we're doing a 90-degree rotation. For clockwise, what you'd have to do is you'd have to flip the numbers around. You see the Y's in front now and the X's in back, and then you change the sign on the back one. It doesn't mean that's always a positive and then a negative. This just means you change, this right here just means you change the sign on the back one. But if it was counterclockwise, which we're going to typically do counterclockwise unless told otherwise, you flip the 2 numbers around, same like you did, but then you change the sign on the front one. Okay, 180 here, doesn't matter which direction you go, it should end up in the same spot. You just change the signs on both. And then 270 here, you can see if it's clockwise, you flip them around and change the sign on the front. If it's counterclockwise, you flip them around and change the sign on the back one. So we'll practice that for a couple of them. But there's a chart that you should have written down. And you can use that when we get to the quiz as well. So rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise. So here's my triangle. In order to do that, we know when you're rotating, it should go counterclockwise. So that's this direction. And 90 degrees, it should end up in this quadrant. Now we want to get the exact coordinates. So if I take -2, this is -3, 2. We got -3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we've got -5, 2. So make sure you have those graphed on your first graph. If we want to take those points, so for instance, -3, 5, and if we want to use the rule for 90 degrees counterclockwise, if I go back to the last slide, 90 degrees counterclockwise was -yx. So I'll put that -yx, meaning we're going to flip the values around, and we're going to change the sign on the front one. So this is going to become 5, -3. And then we're going to change the sign on the front one to become -5. So my new coordinate is -5, -3. And you can notice that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. That'll end up right in this quadrant. Okay, we're going to do that with each. So -3, 2. Flip them around, it's 2, -3. And then change the front symbol. So it's a -2, -3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And then finally we had -5, 2. And I want to flip those around and then change the sign on the front one. And again, it's really easy to tell, as you can see my smiley face almost, if I just had a smile here. But -2, -5. So there it is. But you'll notice that they all become negative and negative, and that's because in this quadrant, all the numbers are negative, negative. So you could just remember that, okay, I'm going to flip the x and the y, and then just check these are all negative, negative coordinates. But if you look, the shape is the same size, same shape, the lengths are the same, it's just completely rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise. Does not, it just changes the location and the position. All right, let's do a reflection over the y-axis. Now this is one where you don't necessarily have to have the coordinates. So here's my triangle. You don't necessarily have to know the numbers or the coordinates. You just have to know which one is the y-axis. And the y-axis here is the vertical axis. It's always up and down. So when I'm doing a reflection, remember all the points should be flipped over and the same distance from the center of the line of reflection. So if I look at this first point, it's 1, 2, 3 on this side of it, meaning I should go 1, 2, 3 on the other side of it, and here's my new point. Okay, so I'm going to actually make my new ones purple here. So there's my new point. Now I could do the same thing. If I look here, these have to go 5 over here, so I have to go 5 over this direction, and I get all the way to this point, and there it is. And go back to the bottom one, it's 3 over, straight to the line, 3 over, straight to the from the line, and my coordinate would be right there. And my new triangle looks exactly the same size, same shape, just completely mirrored on the other side of the y-axis. And all the points are the same distance away from that center of rotation. Or not rotation, line of reflection there. Okay? So there's my new shape. All right, let's do an example. Translate 5 left, 2 down, and then reflect over the x-axis. So two things we're going to do with this original shape, which I have right here. All right? Now, do them one at a time. So let's do a translation. We'll make the first one red. So if I go 5 left and 2 down, that means every single point goes 5 left. That goes 5 left and 2 down. So it should end up right there. Okay? And that's right here. Now I'm going to do 5 to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2 down. So it should end up right there. I'm going to do the same thing with the other points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2 down. Make that right here. And then the other one is actually right above there. 5 to the left and 2 down. So here's my second shape. So here's what we started with. Here's shape B. And then we have to do one more thing. That's the translation. We got to do then reflection over the x-axis. So find the x-axis. That's the horizontal one right here. And if I want to reflect over it, I go the same distance on both sides of it. Okay, so again, take this point, I go 2 down to the line. I got to go 2 past it, and my new coordinate is right here. Okay, the other one is 3 away, so I have to go 3 away. Here's that one. 2 away, so I go too far there. And then the other one was 3 away, 3 away. So there's my other 2 points, here and here. So this is my final shape. We'll say shape C, after doing a translation 5 left and 2 down, and then reflecting across the x-axis. So that's where we end up. Let's do one more. All right, this one is a rotation of 180 degrees and a translation 4 to the right. So my shape here is a triangle in the bottom right quadrant. So if you want to start by putting that in your graph. And make sure as you're doing this, you're writing what we're doing. We're doing a rotation 180 degrees and then translation 4 to the right. So just as a reminder, for a rotation, it's negative x, negative y. You don't ever switch the coordinates around, you just change the sign. So if my coordinates are 3, negative 1, whoa. 1, negative 1, what is going on here? And then this is 1, negative 3. So if I want to switch those all from 1, -1, I want to make them opposites. So it's going to become -1, +1. And you'll see if you rotate 180 degrees, it should end up halfway around. So it should end up here, well, up here-ish. And -1, 1 is in that spot. So I'm going to say red is my second shape. So -1, 1 is right there. Okay. If I want to take 3, -1, and I want to do the opposite of both of them, it's going to be -3, +1. And if I want to do 1, -3, and do the opposite of those, it becomes -1, +3. So I'm going to graph both of those, -3, 1, -1, 3. And if you notice, visually it looks like it's a complete 180-degree rotation. Now that's only the second shape. We need to get to the third shape, which would be after now taking that shape and translating it 4 to the right. So translating 4 to the right, remember, move all the points 4 to the right. So 1, 2, so I go 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right here. I go 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right here. And I'm going to actually erase those. And my third point is 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right. So my last shape ends up in the top right quadrant after doing a rotation and a translation. All right? So remember, when you're doing translations, make sure you move just all the points. Remember when you're doing reflections to make sure it goes the same side on the or same distance on the other side of the line of reflection, and our rotation rules are here, which I hope you have written down. And at any time, if you needed to pause that, feel free to pause it. If you need to go back and write something down, go back and write something down. But that's our recap of reflections, rotations, and translations on a graph. We'll see you next time.